Okay, we're going to start off with an exercise. When I say go, I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to share with them your annual salary. Okay, go. What is so funny? What's so funny? Why aren't we sharing? You did, some did. Okay, very good. I get it though. Maybe we're just not ready for that conversation. Now, what if instead I asked you to turn to your neighbor and share something about yourself? You would talk about anything. You'd share your name, where you're from. You talk about your family or maybe even your last adventure. Something, though, to relate to the person in some way. Money, however, is something that we can all relate to, but we don't think about talking about it in a social setting. It's just not customary for us to think of talking about our personal money matters, although it has a tremendous impact and effect on our health, our relationships, our financial stability, and in our communities. In my 10 years as a financial planner, I've heard thousands of stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what I can share with you about those stories is we all face money issues. But instead of keeping our money issues a secret, I believe that we can all benefit if we were to openly share our experiences and our stories in a way that would lead to all of us living better, balanced lives so that we can truly focus our time and energy into the things that we truly care and value in life. The question we must not answer is, why don't we talk about money? The question we must answer today is, why don't we talk about money in the 21st century? Money is important, and it's important to talk about. Think about it. How would you live and function today if you didn't have money in your life? How would you provide for your family? Where would you sleep? And how would you feed yourself? How would you even get around? Let's face it, we've all bought into the concept that money is a social contract, and it is necessary for us to function in society today. Yet, the topic is still taboo, and we're still very weird about talking about money, as you experienced earlier in my talk. As a matter of fact, a 2015 study by Ally Bank revealed that over 70% of Americans still find talking about money in a social setting rude and inappropriate. But what I would argue is that today, more than ever, we need to open up the conversation, because a lack of communication and a lack of understanding about money leads to stress, anxiety, and unwanted outcomes. So what we need to do, though, is open up the conversation in a productive manner, and that can lead to peace, prosperity, and freedom for all of us individually and collectively. So why is it that we find it so hard to talk about money? Well, first off, we may feel embarrassed or ashamed about our financial status. We may feel as if we don't make enough and we are inadequate. We begin to start associating our self-worth with our net worth. And we judge other people by their money as well. For those people that do make a lot of money, they may be also unwilling or embarrassed to share their information or stories or experiences because they don't want to be judged by their money either. Another issue that we face today is that we just don't know how to communicate the language of money. Unfortunately, many of us have not received formal or adequate training on how to actually be intellectual about money and understand it. Let's face it, we don't want to come across as stupid or ignorant. But money is a language in and of itself, just like Spanish. So imagine for a moment if you were only speaking English and you were dropped into the middle of Spain and you had no resources and you didn't know Spanish. How would you get around? How would you be able to function? It'd be pretty difficult at first. Now, not knowing Spanish is nothing to be ashamed or afraid about. Because if you had to get around Spain, you would simply learn the language of Spanish. And it's just like money. If you want to learn the language of money, you have to start understanding it, reading it, and communicating it to become fluent in the language. So another reason why we have troubles talking about our money issues is that we're afraid that we would be alienated from our social circles and our groups. Think about a time in your life where you were asked to go on an elaborate vacation or trip. And as much as you wanted to go, maybe you didn't have the money or you had it, but it was being saved for another reason. Or you get a phone call from someone asking to donate to a charity that's very dear and special to them. And as much as you want to, you just don't really have the funds to do so. Or think about just on the daily basis, you get a call to go to happy hour, go to dinner, and hang out with your friends. Maybe you don't have the money either. Or maybe there's some other issues you just haven't told your friends about. And that's where we get into trouble. Because not disclosing our financial concerns or issues leads us to make up excuses about why we can't hang out with our friends. Or we do it anyways because we'd rather suffer the financial hardship and make sure that our friends' feelings aren't hurt or disappointed. It's the lack of conversation about money that leads us to trying to make sure that we're able to keep up with the Joneses, stay in the conversation, and still be relevant with our friends and family. At a basic level, historically, money has been a topic that has been off limits. Now, today, it's always been that way. But how often do we challenge the status quo? Maybe we should challenge the status quo. And why should we? Well, the impact of money affects our health, our relationships, our financial stability, and our communities in general. So let me explain. We're all aware of the statistic that 50% of the marriages in our country end in divorce. But did you know the top 2 reasons for divorce in this country is number 1, a lack of communication, and number 2, disagreements about money. So if we're not talking about money and we disagree about it, how can we even resolve our financial issues? What I find even more interesting is that financial conversations about money tend to be avoided until after the I do's are said, if ever at all. One person may enter the marriage with being a spender, and the other one's a saver. Or one person has a lot of debt, like credit cards, student loans, and auto loans. So you can see how these issues can have a huge effect on our health and in our relationships. So speaking of health, money stresses can also have a huge impact on our health and our livelihood. In a recent study entitled "Stressed in America, Paying with Our Health," the American Psychological Association says that money worries continue to nag at the American psyche despite the ongoing economic recovery in our country. Of the respondents in the survey, 64% of them listed money issues as the number 1 concern and stress in their lives. And that ranked higher than work issues, issues at home, and personal health issues. So as you can see, not talking about our money issues can have a dire consequence on our physical health. So what are we going to do about it? First off, you want to sit down and write out your values. I say your values because sometimes we have difficulty making sure that the things that we do with our money are truly in line with what it is we truly appreciate and care about. And we tend to get mixed up in the messages when it comes to what our friends say or society says or commercialism tells us to care about. But clearly identifying your values will help you identify the appropriate next actions regarding your money. Next, ask to sit down with your spouse, your partner, or a trusted person like a financial planner and schedule time to have this conversation. Open up the dialogue. Discuss those values you've identified in step number 1, and then get those people involved that are in your life that have a financial stake to talk about it, and have them share their values, their concerns, and their worries. That way you can come together on this and have a common standing ground. Now, just because I'm a financial planner doesn't mean that the money conversation in my marriage is perfect at all. My wife and I have been together for 8 years in total. We have an 18-month-old, and we're both self-employed. So I can tell you that we're always talking about our money conversations. Now, she may hate the B word, budget, but it's something that I feel is important to talk about, because when we do so, we come together and we have the conversation, we leave with better respect and understanding for the other person's point of view. She comes from a different value system than I do about money, so I can learn a lot from her and she can learn a lot from me. But what I can tell you is that it takes a lot of time and patience, energy, and most importantly, communication for us to be successful together. Now, lastly, once you've identified your values and you've spoken to that trusted person in step number 2, there's one final step that is the most important step in this whole process. And that's actually writing out your plan. Every individual and couple is unique in their own way. But you must have a plan in order to accomplish all of your goals. Like I said earlier, 64% of Americans in this country are stressed out about their money, but only 16% of them actually have a written plan. So this written plan is going to become your guide. It's going to allow you to be able to make money decisions with knowledge, with confidence, knowing that you're doing the best thing for you and for your family, and it's in line with your values. Now, there was a time in my life where money was an issue, and it was a stress. And I did feel very alienated from a lot of different people, because I always felt like everyone was doing a lot better than I was. So what did I do? I kept my head down, I stayed focused, and I worked as hard as I could to get out of my issues as fast as possible. My only regret during that period is that I didn't actively seek out someone that I could fully talk to and disclose what was going on in my life. Because had I done so, I would have had the emotional support, and I would have also been able to resolve my issues much quicker. So this evening, I invite everyone here in this room to join me in this conversation today. When are you going to start talking about your money? Thank you.